Greetings, everyone. The cat behind me is Sarah Jane. The friends I'm staying with have three cats, so while I miss Carl very, very much, I at least get to see him once a week, and I do have various cat, various cat friends, as you can hear, to keep me company. Um, so I thought I'd take a little break from job hunting and schoolwork and all the other shit I'm busy with to actually do the best films of 2016 list according to me. Now, obviously, I have not seen every film released in 2016 theatrically, so any sort of list of this type is going to be flawed in some way. That's just sort of the way it is. So I at least thought I would make them of the ones I've seen, and I have seen quite a bit. That's the uh, the advantage, right? The advantage of having free movies at my disposal, at the very least. One thing going for me in my life. Movies that I did not see that may have made this list if I could have, since I always include that. I did not see Midnight Special with Michael Shannon. That sounds like a movie I probably would have liked. I did not see The Lobster from the people who made, or the guy who made Dogtooth. It seemed like that got a lot of praise. It also got a screenplay nomination at the Oscars. That sounds like something that was probably up my alley, but I just didn't get a chance. I did not see the documentary Wiener about Anthony Weiner. I did not see The Neon Demon from the guy who directed Drive, which was a film I really, really loved. He also did Only God Forgives, which I did not like, and the movie got vague and not so much reviews, but you never know. I did not see The Light Between Oceans. That was from the director of The Place Beyond the Pines, a movie that I really, really love. I did not see Elle or Ellie. I forget how to pronounce it. The Paul Vanderhoven film that's getting some accolades. I did not see Bleed for this, which is about Vinny Pazienza, a boxer from up in Rhode Island, where I'm from. I actually used to have an autograph of his that my grandfather got me, but it got lost a long time ago. Probably one of the many, many times I've moved. One of my low key dreams is still to never have to move again in my life, but nope. I had to move once in 2016. I was kicked out of my house in 2017, and now I have to find another place in 2017, and we'll see. And I also did not see Nocturnal Animals with Amy Adams. That seems like a movie that I probably would love once I actually get a chance to see it. It's up my alley. All right, now that those are out of the way, of the films I did actually see, the top 10. Again, I don't have access to editing equipment. I'm just talking into my phone right now, so I'm not going to put up images or anything, and that. So yeah, I apologize for the crudeness of this video. Not that my videos are very well made, generally, anyway. So number 10, The Purge election year. I know, horror movie sequel. I usually have one weird horror movie on my list that no one else considers great, but I love political satire horror films or horror films that say something politically. And there were a lot of those in the Bush administration. Both, not so much Saw, but definitely Hostel and Hostel 2 definitely had anti-Bush and anti-xenophobia and American exceptionalism arguments in them, even though people are like, "What are you talking about? Those are just random gore for no reason. Those are torture horror." But no, they actually do. You should, I don't know. You can read my reviews of them at some point. But I like that the Purge movies are very much about the time we live in that they're very obvious about their message. Because when I talk about movies like Hostel or something having it, the people are like, you're just reading too much into it. But with Purge Election Year, everything is right fucking on the surface, and it smacks you in the face with it, so you cannot deny its social satire and contemporaneous commentary. And I thought that was actually probably the best one of the series. I mean, yeah, it has the same problems that horror sequels do and all that stuff, but when you have like a Ted Cruz, Rick Santorum type person murdering people in a church for what is obviously the Republican Party, the new founding fathers and all that, and you have like white power people with Confederate flags and Nazi symbols and all that stuff hunting down poor black people in the communities, and it's very on the nose, but I really enjoyed the satire and the violence and all that stuff. I thought it was a very good political satire horror film. Sort of on the sillier end of stuff that John Carpenter used to do. I mean, not up to the level of like They Live or anything. Not that good, but still, I thought it was really really good. And for a year where horror movies were very successful, but they were usually PG-13 pieces of shit, or they were jump scare heavy movies that emulate horrible real life people, like The Conjuring, which is about those two horrible scam artists and tries to make them look like they're nice people, and they're all based on bullshit stories and fakeness. Um, so in a year where movies like that are successful, it's nice that you have an R-rated political satire movie that actually says something about what's going on. And now Trump wants to make the movie's tagline his re-election thing: "Keep America Great," because he's a fucking idiot, fascist piece of shit. All right, number nine, another political movie, Miss Sloan. All right, Miss Sloan suffered by having a very unrealistic ending twist, but aside from that, what I liked about Miss Sloan is that it is a movie about working within the system. It makes no qualms about that the system is fucked up and corrupt, and that lobbyists have way too much power and everything. So I think what the movie is arguing, because it's about a lobbyist who ends up trying to go against a gun bill, or tries to push a anti-gun bill, which is sort of very impossible to do in the United States because of our stupid Second Amendment thing. Um, so I think the argument of the film is that if we want to actually win, we actually do have to play dirty if we plan to work within the system. Working outside of the system is obviously a different issue, and that's not one that the film is interested in. But it's that you kind of have to be dirty and rotten because that's what's actually going to win if you're going to play this game. If you're going to play the game, then you have to actually play the game. You can't basically cripple your own self while playing it. It's like starting Monopoly with only $1. You're not going to win anything. So I sort of like that argument of working within the system, but you have to be almost as dark as the system. The sort of the bullshit answer of like, oh, taking the high road, that doesn't do shit. Taking the high road is the road to being a loser. But Jessica Chastain has a really great performance in it, and if for a political junkie, it is a really fun movie. Um, Probably not as good as the makers were hoping. I'm sure they were hoping it to be like an Oscar quality thing, but I really enjoyed it, and that might be my own personal love of political stuff. Number eight, The Accountant. What I like about The Accountant is that it was basically trying to make a movie that had an autistic superhero, where you have a main character who is a high functioning autistic person, probably maybe not as high functioning as Asperger's, but he's definitely autistic, but he still is very good at assassinating and investigating things. So he's basically like a super smart, super tough killing machine who is autistic. And I can imagine that for a kid who is maybe a little further down on the spectrum than I am, like growing up, if I were a 12-year-old high functioning autistic boy and I saw The Accountant, I'd think, yeah, fuck the assholes and the right wing people they've decided to replace calling people retarded as an insult by calling them autistic, autistic screeching, that sort of thing. That's become the new socially acceptable way to be ableist, I guess. So it'd be like, no, fuck you. We can, we can shoot you 12 times before you hit the ground, fucking John Lithgow. And Ben Affleck, who I'm not a fan of Ben Affleck's Batman or the DCEU, but he's very good as the main character in that film. And the film does try to eschew cliches at many points, even how the main villain is dispatched and everything, or the way it sort of tiptoes but then doesn't go with the cliched love story. So I really liked how it did that. It definitely tried to be a bit more original, and sometimes it failed, sometimes it worked well. But overall, I thought it was a really good action movie, especially a sort of a drama with action, not full on action like a John Wick or something. So, but I was very very pleased with that. Number seven would be Arrival. What I like about Arrival is that it's actually a studio horror movie, a studio sci-fi movie rather. That's not about explosions and Michael Bay shit. It's actually about ideas and thinking. It's like hard sci-fi, not soft sci-fi. Like a movie more closer to like Gattaca than it is Independence Day, and I really enjoyed that. Amy Adams does a great performance in it. She was probably snubbed for Best Actress, but that's a very tough category this year. It's a very strong one. And I really liked the sort of there's going to be some spoilers here, but I like the idea of the sort of Kurt Vonneguting consciousness shifting through time thing. And even if I think the movie is trying to say that her decision regarding having her daughter is a good decision, I view it as incredibly selfish, and the movie doesn't deal with that. It just completely goes that she's making the right decision because you can't avoid pain, and I get that lesson, but I still think it's a little myopic. But aside from that, it is an excellent movie about how instead of like shoot first, ask questions later, neoconservatism, it's actually about diplomacy and talking things through and trying to be intelligent and listening to scientists. It's very much the anti-Trump of sci-fi movies, whereas the Trump of sci-fi movies is probably going to be Transformers: The Last Night or some Michael Bay piece of shit that nobody wants to see, but is still going to make a lot of money because of yokels and rednecks. Um, and the director of Arrival, he also did Sicario. He's aside from Passengers, which was a low key Christian propaganda movie, and I fucking hated that movie. He's done a lot of really good work, and now he's doing the new Blade Runner. He's going to be doing Dune, so he's a guy to look out for. Number six, Hell or High Water. I liked this movie as well. Aside from it's sort of about the housing crisis, sort of about the banks foreclosing on land and everything, while it's also a bank robbery thing. What I really liked about it, though, is it's a movie with a liberal economic message that is attempting to appeal to red state conservatives. It takes place in Texas. It's very much about guns and gun culture, and it's pretty pro those things for the most part. It's definitely about like men's men and that sort of thing, but it also has very liberal left wing messages about economics, also about race. There's well, they're Mexicans and immigrants and who used to own the land, and sort of about how at first it was the white people's culture who stole the land from Mexicans, Native Americans, and that sort of thing. And now, who's stealing that land from the white people? The capitalists, the banks, the ones who are foreclosing on that because of all their risky venture taking and everything. So I like that. There's great performances in there by Chris. I always confuse Chris Evans and Chris Pine and Chris Helmsworth and all the different fucking Chris's. So the Chris that's in that movie, great fun. Ben Foster. It's Ben Foster, right? I always confuse him with the other guy too. And Jeff Bridges, obviously, who's basically just playing Jeff Bridges. But that was a very, very good movie. That was probably one of the first like really good movies of the year I saw because that came out in the middle of the summer. Number five, Sausage Party, an animated movie about talking food. Why? Because that movie is atheist propaganda. Now, aside from the fact that yeah, it does have a couple jabs at holier than thou atheists, the ones who condescendingly insult people, which I sometimes am because religion is fucking stupid. But ultimately, it is an attack on religion and the stupidity of faith. There's little jabs about the Israeli-Palestine crisis. There's jabs about not believing things that have evidence, like evolution and things like that. It's all just about belief versus proof and the idiocy of faith, but also that the way to convince people to go toward objective reality and not faith isn't to be a dick about it. So I like that. Plus, the movie is very funny. I really enjoyed it. Um, I mean, yeah, it does play with racial stereotypes, but it does it for satirical purposes, and also it is making fun of Disney and stuff. And Disney has always fallen back on stereotypes and has had a rough history with different races and genders. See Song of the South and other films like that. So I really enjoyed that. The animation's great. I know there is some issue that some of the animators were forced to do overtime and were underpaid or unpaid. That is unacceptable labor practices. But the film, in and of itself, regardless of the shit that went on behind the scenes that is egregious, is a very funny film. And I'm just inclined to love atheist propaganda that has scatological humor and things like that. So, very good movie. Number four is The Nice Guys. Shane Black's little movie that takes place in the 70s. That one also has some political commentary about like climate change and the auto industry, but it's not really thrown on upon. It was just a really funny, clever, well acted Ryan Gosling, Russell Crowe film that was a throwback to sort of buddy cop comedies, but not the cliched ones like Lethal Weapon or something. Well, the first couple Lethal Weapons are right. It's not of the level of Lethal Weapon 3 or 4 or the shitty ones. It's of a much better level. And it has a good little mystery to it. The characters are funny. It's interesting. It has good action. You like watching the characters. It's just a really good movie. Um, and the reason it rises to greatness isn't because it's a standout great movie. The reason it rises to greatness is because most of the movies Hollywood's putting out now are such shit that when a movie like this, which would have probably been middle of the road in the 70s or 80s if it actually came out, now it's almost like fucking greatness to be out there because they don't make movies that good anymore. That sort of mid-budgeted studio movie with a couple of stars that actually has quality. You don't see stuff like that anymore. And it was just a really fun movie to watch. I had a really good time watching it. And most movies, I'm like, I might like it. It might be a little disappointing, or it might blow me away. This was one that was like, this was just a solid, solid, good movie. And the fact that it is so solid made me love it more, even in retrospect, than I probably would on any other year. So The Nice Guys, that you can rent that now. Very, very good movie. And it's so high on my list because of that. Number three and number two on this list, I had trouble deciding the order, but I ended up going with La La Land for number three. And La La Land is a movie that's doing a lot of things and it's saying a lot of things. Aside from it emulating 1950s musicals of like the Singing in the Rain variety or basic studio musical, it's also sort of about the difference between art and commerce, or pursuing a dream and living your life. And it's also about compromise and what level of compromise is acceptable in pursuing your dream, which is an interesting question, because everybody has to sell out at some point because art is commerce. Movies have to make money. Plays have to bring in tickets. If you make something that's art, it still has to sell in a gallery if it's a painting or something. So we all sell out if we make art, but the problem is what level of selling out is appropriate and which one actually compromises artistic integrity. And the movie actually deals with a lot of those questions about art and dreams and practicality versus idealism. And I like that it plays with those ideas while also being very artistically and aesthetically very well made. The way that it's very bright colors and stuff, like a 1950s musical would be, from the production design and the costumes. And then as the film goes on, the story gets sadder, and it also, the songs start to lessen up a little bit and it becomes more realistic. The color palette starts to move more toward realism from the Technicolor glow and everything. And I really like, the music is really good. That the opening scene takes place in like a traffic jam, and then that bursts into song, because that's never a setting that you'd see a musical begin in. It's a very, very well made movie, and I think the reason I put it at number three instead of number two is because my number two pick, which I'll go into, hit me a bit more personally. And I feel that while La La Land it hit me intellectually, it did hit me emotionally, especially Emma Stone's last song, the audition song. That was my favorite song in the film, and everything. It still felt a bit removed. It didn't really hit my heart as much as the number two one. So while La La Land is a more clever and more harder to make movie, and more was probably put into it on a nuts and bolts level, uh, it's still a bit further removed from my own personal like. And since this is my list, that's why it's at number three, other than number two. But on my list, then two and three could easily flip flop, or they could have been tied at a number. This is just an arbitrary list anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, La La Land, I mean, it's probably going to win Best Picture. I would have no problem with it winning Best Picture. It's an excellent film. But I chose number two to be Manchester by the Sea. Um, Manchester by the Sea, on a technical level, isn't much. I mean, the camera that they used to film it, it's a digital camera definitely, but the picture quality was amazing on it. Now, I work at the theater that I saw this movie in, so I know that it's not that we got a new projector or it's a new file or anything. Nothing special on the exhibition level. It's whatever they filmed it with. It looked great. But aside from that, it's pretty much a drama. A drama with a lot of comedy in it. There is a lot of really funny moments in it, but there's also a lot of really gut punch drama. And maybe because I'm going through a hard time in my life right now, not as hard as Casey Affleck in the movie, but and because of that, I'm more highly emotional. But the movie really registered with me. I really cared about the characters. I was really invested in it. I laughed when I was supposed to laugh. I almost cried when I was supposed to cry. It was really a couple moments. The moment where Casey Affleck is talking to the Michelle Williams character, and she's just like pushing the kid in the carriage, and she's trying to apologize to him, and he just can't accept the apology because he hates himself for what's happened. That scene was just brutal. And it was done by Kenneth Lonergan. He did You Can Count on Me, the movie that propelled Mark Ruffalo to stardom. And he also made another movie that I'm not going to get into. It's behind the scenes stuff, Margaret. I didn't see that, but I've heard good things about it. It was a final cut issue about the length of it. Many different directors came in to try and edit it to help the studio and everything. But so this was his sort of comeback, I guess, and it's a phenomenal movie. Now, I know there's issues behind the scenes. Casey Affleck, the sexual harassment lawsuits and everything. So I'm not going to speak to him as a person. I don't know. He might be an asshole. Who knows? But as far as an acting performance, he gives probably the best male performance I've seen on screen this year. It is a very good performance. He does a phenomenal job in the movie overall. It hits all of the emotional levels it's supposed to. It has a slightly nonlinear structure, so I guess there's some artistry there, but the dialogue feels, even when it's funny, it feels authentic. The pauses, the kind of talking over a little bit, the way that people react to grief isn't like a Lifetime TV movie. It feels like a genuine reaction, like when characters have panic attacks, when they make bad decisions, when they make okay decisions. Everything feels like authentic, real people, and and I don't know, when you see people in a movie, characters in a movie that feel like they're real people, that's something. So I was really impressed by the movie. The movie blew me away. I fucking loved it, and that's why it's also so high on this list. And I ultimately did like it a bit more than La La Land, I suppose, on a personal level, even though La La Land is probably objectively a slightly better film. Like, if I were trying to make a list of what I thought might be objectively the best films of the year, La La Land's probably better than Manchester, but on a personal level, I connected with Manchester by the Sea more. So there. But number one, my favorite film of 2016, Green Room. It's not really a horror movie, but it's a thriller. Green Room. It's about a band that gets stuck in a white supremacist neo-Nazi concert venue, I guess, barn thing, and they're trying to get out alive while the neo-Nazis, led by Patrick Stewart, are trying to kill them and cover up a different thing that happened on the property. I loved Green Room, and what I loved about it is that many times when you're watching a horror movie, a good horror movie or a bad horror movie, characters will do something stupid. Something stupid because it's needed for the plot to happen. All of the characters in Green Room make decisions that are understandable and are not stupid. The villains are smart and are trying to get something done. The heroes are smart-ish in trying to get something done, and the mistakes that are made by them are often ones they could not have foreseen, and I really like that. Plus, with the rise of the alt right and the neo Nazis and the Breitbart people and the Trump people, any movie about neo Nazis getting their comeuppance and that has a cover of the Dead Kennedys Nazi punks fuck off is going to resonate. Now, I saw this movie in like March or April, so this was before most people thought Trump could win. I still can't believe he didn't win. He just won the electoral college. He lost the actual election. Um, but it's really intense. It's got the right amount of gore, the right amount of suspense. It really works. Aside from the part where Anton Yelchin like sharpies his face and does that Odin himself thing, which I was all right. The movie really doesn't step out in a wrong way. It's a really phenomenal movie. So for someone who likes genre films, who likes thrillers and horror films, and this is probably a bit more thriller than horror, but and also someone who likes closed room movies where there's certain people that are trapped somewhere and there's a danger around them that they're trying to escape, whether that's something like Assault on Precinct 13 or Dawn of the Dead. There's a lot. It's a kind of its own subgenre of people, like closed people trying to get out of a place that they're trapped into. Not like Room or Buried or the Ryan Reynolds movie where he's buried alive. Not that kind of thing, but more like when they're stuck in like a building and there's a danger around the building kind of thing. So it also fits into a subgenre I really like. And seeing Patrick Stewart play a neo-Nazi leader, an intelligent neo-Nazi leader, is really interesting and fun. So that was my top 10. Like any list, if they're up to debate and arguing, you can say, hey, it's a good list. You can say, hey, Dave, you're a fucking idiot and you wasted your money on your useless film studies degree. Whatever. These lists are fun. Movie fans like to do them and argue about them in the comments. It's just something movie geeks do. And doing this was able to take half an hour of my time, so I'm not focused on the rest of the bullshit that's happening in my life, and I can be a little bit happy because I'm talking about movies, and movies make me happy as opposed to, the job hunt or the apartment hunt or, focusing on, my broken heart or anything like that. Shit. All right, so that's my list. Leave a comment if you have stuff. Most of those movies, they're either still in theaters or they're available to stream or rent. I'm trying to think if any of those are not available. Miss Sloan, I'm not sure if that's either in theaters or to stream, but Purge is on video, Accountant's on video, Arrival was just re-released in theaters for a week or so, Hell or High Water's on video, Sausage Party's on video, Nice Guys is on video, La La Land and Manchester are still in some theaters, and Green Room's on video. So aside from Miss Sloan, any of those you should probably be able to see. And maybe I'll get to my didn't see yet list at some point when my life settles down a bit. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys.